Hot Mic starts now.
Hot Mic with Dom Izzo.
Really? Really, Dom?
No. I like what Dom's doing.
Okay.
Dom Izzo.
Jeez, come on, Dom. What do you think I am, a magician?
Yeah, I'm fired up, Dom. What else could I say?
Absolutely. It was great to get on the field, and then Dom came up to me, and I'm trying to walk away from me. I just wanted to enjoy myself out there.
Hot Mic.
Great job.
There's got to be some kind of intelligent question about something.
Coach Dom Izzo, WDAY in Fargo, North Dakota. Can you give me a layup or something?
Hot Mic. Presented by Northwestern Mutual.
That program is second to none.
On the networks of WDAY.
You know, if it's not about sports, I find it very hard to concentrate.
Here's Dom Izzo.
Good Wednesday morning. Welcome to the It's Draft Night edition of Hot Mic on WDAY Extra, KSFL in Sioux Falls, KMBN in Rapid City, and Inforum.com. Happy Hump Day, everybody. Final Wednesday of the month, 25th of June, ready to rock and roll. It is NBA Draft Night. The first round comes up later. We've been so conditioned in past years that the first round has always been reserved for a high pick for the Timberwolves. We've got to get used to now the fact that the Wolves don't pick early. Although, thanks to some suave drafting and impressive trades, that the Wolves actually have a mid-first round pick, at least as of 9:02 this morning. That may change as the day goes on. If we know anything about Tim Conley, who runs everything for the Timberwolves, that likely will change with some sort of move coming up before 7 o'clock tonight when the draft gets going. We'll get to that coming up later on in the show. Hope everybody enjoyed our live broadcast yesterday. That was great stuff out in Wahpeton for Cody Mauch's football camp. Again, 500 kids there yesterday in 2 separate sessions. If you missed any of our interviews, they're all podcasted. The entire show, you can go back and rewatch. It was great stuff, whether it was with Cody, Mason Miller. Obviously, we had Gray Zabel on, which was really neat. Chance to conversation with Gray since heading to the Seattle Seahawks. A bunch of other conversations. You can check that all out available at Inforum.com. Got a lot to get to on the show today. We're going to cover a few different sports. We didn't have time yesterday to dive into it, and I wanted to make sure we saved some time today to dive into the fact that Minnesota beat Alabama for a football player. We talked about it briefly on Monday's show that Roman Voss from Jackson County Central was going to make up his mind. He did. He's going to be a Gopher. We're going to dive into that coming up later on in the show. Bunch of football recruiting chatter we're going to get to before the show wraps up today. You heard in our show tease as well, from Mayville, North Dakota to the SEC. We've had Landon Koenig on the show before, former North Dakota State pitcher, entered the transfer portal after the Bison NCAA tournament run. He announced yesterday he's going to go play for Ole Miss in the SEC. That's quite the deal. That's coming up later on in our show as well. We'll start with baseball, and I'm not sure how much longer we're going to do it. At least till July 1. And then after that, I don't know if the Twins are going to keep being relevant because they are trending in the wrong direction. Yesterday, they lost again. Their 11th loss in 12 games. And we mentioned it briefly before the show wrapped up that the under the cover of darkness announcement that Rocco Baldelli got an extension through 2026. And the way things are trending right now, this team could lose, we thought at the start of the year, they could lose 90-some-odd games. They're trending in that way. They lost 11 of 12 after last night's defeat to Seattle, which was almost a carbon copy of what happened in the game on Monday night, where they fell way behind. Cal Raleigh is having an MVP season. Again, we've talked about this with our guy Drew Trafton, the resident Mariner nerd, that this guy can walk down the street and have no idea who he is. That's a baseball problem. That's not a you problem. Raleigh was sensational again last night. Drove in a couple runs. Mariners got up 3-0. Why can't the Twins find players like Donovan Solano? Remember him? Drives in 2 with an opposite field hit. It's 5-0 off Chris Paddock, who, again, was the Twins' savior for a bit. Now he's returned to mortality. They got on the board on this Cody Clemens home run to right, 353-foot shot, made it a 5-1 Seattle lead. They trended in with this Brooks Lee opposite field hit to left. That would score Trevor Larnach, make it 5-2. They would get it to 5-3 after an RBI ground out when Ryan Jeffers steps to the plate in the bottom of the fourth, and he delivers with this laser beam off the wall in left. That's going to score 2, and all of a sudden the Twins have come all the way back. So, all right, game on. It's 5-all in the fourth inning. Big situation here. Raleigh at the plate. Griffin Jacks up. And this is, again, why I mentioned it yesterday and on Monday's show. If they're going to start blowing up the roster, which I think they should, Griffin Jacks can get you something. That was a big-time strikeout there to keep the game tied up at 5. It will remain that way to the top of the ninth. They bring Duran in a non-safe situation. Bases are loaded. And, of course, what's going to happen? Rodriguez skies one to right. That's deep enough to score a run on a sac fly. That would make it 6-5. Twins would go meekly in the bottom of the ninth, and Seattle takes the first 2 games of this 4-game set. 6-5, the final. Drops the Twins to their 11th loss in their last 12 games. Now 5 games under 500. There was a stretch where they were 6 games over, and now 5 under. That is not good. Paddock, a no decision as Duran took the loss. Luis Castillo was the Mariners' ace, went 5, allowed 7 hits and 5 runs and struck out 3. Big night for former Twin Donovan Solano with a couple of runs driven in. The Twins, as I mentioned, now 5 games under 500. The Central standings, it's over in the division. It may be. We're not even to July 1, and it may be over. The Tigers have a 9.5 game lead. They are the first team to reach 50 wins in baseball. They did that last night with their victory. So they're 20 full games over 500. Everybody else just fighting for 500. Cleveland 9.5 back. Royals 11.5 back. Twins 12.5 back. And then you got the White Sox doing what they're doing. And I know apologists would say, well, wait a minute. They're only 4.5 back of the wild card. Well, right now, Minnesota would have to leap 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams to get to the final wild card spot. That is not going to happen. It's time to look reality in the mirror with this baseball team. They play Game 3 tonight at Target Field. 6:30 start tonight for George Kirby against Joe Ryan, who, of course, has been Minnesota's best pitcher this year, trying to stymie the tide here of what has been a avalanche of losing. That's tonight at Target Field. They'll play a matinee tomorrow to wrap up this set before they go back out on the road. It's not good, and there are numerous candidates to move on from. There are. Jax is one. Cole Sands is another. You've got some decisions to make. Granted, with an ownership group that is on its way out, that makes maybe things a heck of a lot more complicated on what you want to do with the baseball team. But if you want to maybe set the new owners up, then you can go and move a couple of these guys that can fetch some prospects back, because the division is gone, right? I know there's been unbelievable comebacks in baseball over the last handful of years, but we're nearly to July. It ain't happening. It's time to likely move on that. Just my 2 cents, but we'll see what they end up doing. If anything, if there's anything we've known, the Twins typically don't do anything. We'll see over the next couple of weeks, because if not by the All-Star break, so right, that's 2 weeks from now. All-Star game is July 15th, I want to say, in Atlanta. So you've got, 2.5 weeks to make up your mind of what you're going to do, in or out, on this baseball season. And things are trending in the out direction right now. A couple other things to get to before we set up our show for this Wednesday. Also last night, Minnesota Lynx were in action. The Lynx have been off to a dynamite start. They've played 13 games prior to last night. They had won 12 of them. They've already clinched a spot in the Commissioner's Cup, which is in the in-season tournament that the WNBA has. They'll face Caitlin Clark in Indiana in that coming up next week at Target Center. That was the backdrop for last night's game against Washington. And Washington's not good. The Mystics had struggled so far this season. They were playing without Nafisha Collier, so that's a backstory in its own right for Minnesota. They got out to a great start, and then the Mystics came back and took the lead on them. Here, Alana Smith makes a nice play, comes in. She had 26 points for Minnesota last night, got them back to within 4. Courtney Williams drives and scores. Lynx are down 1. Jessica Shepard here gets the putback at the buzzer to end the third quarter. The Lynx take a 1-point lead going to the fourth. Shakira Austin was really good for Washington last night. She gave them the lead back. Here, Williams knocks it down. But in the corner, this one drilled there. That put Washington in front. They actually would not look back after that. The Lynx had a chance on the inbound. It's stolen away. That's laid in for an easy basket for Washington. Mystics go in a game that, frankly, Minnesota should not have lost. The Lynx lose 68-64 is the final. Just their second loss of the season. They were held without a basket for the last 5 minutes of the game. That's another way you're going to lose. They only had 9 points in the fourth quarter. We mentioned Smith at a career high with 26. Shepard had 12, but it's Shakira Austin who was the star last night. 19-8 for Washington. Lynx are now 12-2. Again, nothing to freak out about, but that's a game, even without your stud, you should win last night. Next game for them is Friday night in Atlanta, and then back home for four next week, including the game with Caitlin Clark in Indiana. That's next Tuesday, July the 1st. They've got Connecticut, Washington, and Golden State, the newest WNBA franchise, coming in for games. So a good stretch of home games at Target Center coming up next week. The big news surrounding basketball in the Twin Cities is surrounding the Wolves, because not only, and we'll get to the draft coming up here in just a little bit, but the sale went through, was formally unanimously approved by the NBA Board of Governors, that now Mark Lowry and Alex Rodriguez are the owners of the team and of the Lynx as well. And they've already did a couple of long-range or long-form interviews with The Athletic and a couple other of publications saying, they're committed. They're not going to move the franchise, but they're going to invest in the team. They've also already been outwardly saying they need a new arena. We knew that was coming. Target Center is, I believe, the oldest arena in the NBA. That, for those that have been to Target Center in the last handful of years, I've been there. I'm sure many of our viewers and listeners have as well. They can tell they've already did the renovation, but it's time for something new. Where that is and when this happens is all up for debate and speculation. But since A-Rod and Lowry were brought in, they hired Tim Connolly. Connolly's gone and done what he's done. They've had the best run the franchise has ever had. And to see where this goes from here is really interesting and fun. It's the complete opposite of what the Twins are at right now, right? The Twins are mired in mediocrity. They don't know what the future of the franchise is and haven't really aspired to anything outside of the playoff win against the Blue Jays a couple years ago, have gone the other way. Meanwhile, the Wolves are back-to-back Western Conference Finals appearances. They've got one of the best players in the league that plays on their team. They've got some really good players around them. It's a team that people want to see. They've been featured on national television. It's one that you want to get behind. And now with the new ownership, really interested to see where this franchise direction goes. It was time for Glenn Taylor to move on. Thanks for 30-some-odd years. Thanks for keeping the team in Minnesota. Would say that, definitely. But now it's time for a change. And we'll see what happens with these guys. Lowry's the money guy. A-Rod's the face, but Lowry has the money. Make no mistake about that. And I know, A-Rod he doesn't have the money. Lowry's the money guy, just for people to know. We got a packed show coming up for you here on this Wednesday morning. Again, we'll get to the NBA draft coming up. The Dallas Mavericks are on the clock. We know Cooper Flagg is going to be the number one guy. After that, there'll be some drama. The Wolves will pick, as we talked about, 17th tonight, at least as of now, for the first round. Coming up on our show, 9:35, we'll welcome back to our program one of NDSU's great players in its Division I run. Jayden Price will join us. We featured on Monday in our Best of the Weekend. JP signed a deal over the weekend with the New Orleans Saints. He's heading back to the National Football League after a great run this spring with the Arlington Renegades of the United Football League. We'll talk about his time in the UFL and what's to come in the NFL back in the NFC South. Remember last year he played his preseason ball with Atlanta, had a great preseason, and now the Saints signed him. So we'll see a chance to make the 53-man roster with New Orleans coming up at 9:35. At 10 o'clock, Landon Koenig will join us, Ole Miss pitcher who had a great couple of years of the bye. His stats won't blow you away, but his 2 years with NDSU were pretty darn good. Good enough that Ole Miss wanted him out of the SEC. We'll discuss that coming up at 10 o'clock. And at 10:35, Ryan Burns will join us from Gopher Illustrated, back with us to give us the lowdown on Roman Voss, the great player from Jackson County Central, the number one player in Minnesota for the class of 2026. He announced late Monday that he's going to go to Minnesota, turn down Alabama to go to the Gophers. And they're waiting on another guy today, another Minnesotan, choosing between the Gophers and Penn State. He'll make his decision today. Ryan will give us the lowdown on that coming up at 10:35. That and a heck of a lot more coming up here on a busy Wednesday. So we're just getting started. Hot Mike returns after this on WDAY Extra, KSFL, KNBN, and Inform.com right after this. Welcome back, everybody. Hot Mike off and rolling on this Wednesday morning. Former Bison standout Jayden Price going to join us in about 10 minutes. Looking forward to our conversation with him. All right, so we've reached NBA draft night, and the powers that be at the NBA have decided to make this a 2-day event. That's for television to expand this out. So there's going to be the first round tonight, and the second round will start tomorrow at 7. First round tonight you'll see on WDAY. And we've known since the lottery that went down in mid-May what the draft order was going to be. Now, there have been a few trades already. We've seen a handful of large trades go down since even the finals wrapped on Sunday, that Kevin Durant trade being the headline one so far. But the first pick is beyond question. Like, we know what's happening there. That's Cooper Flagg is going to go number 1 to Dallas. And then after that, things are going to get interesting. This is how the order looks for tonight as of 9:20 Central Time. Dallas will go 1. Then the Spurs will pick 2nd. And the intrigue probably will start after the second pick. Dylan Harper looks like he's likely going to be the number 2 pick out of Rutgers to the Spurs. The 76ers then pick 3rd. Then the Hornets. Then the Jazz. The Wizards go 6. The Pelicans 7th. Then Brooklyn at 8. The Raptors 9. The Rockets at 10. That comes now by virtue of the trade of Kevin Durant that Houston now moves in the 10 spot. Then Portland. Then the Bulls. Then the Hawks. The Spurs. And yes, the NBA champion Thunder picked 15th because of a different trade from Miami through the Clippers. They have the 15th overall pick. Then the Grizzlies pick 16th. And then our Minnesota Timberwolves, there they are at 17. Now, the Wolves have this pick by virtue of the Cat trade that came through the Pistons. That if Detroit made the playoffs, that this pick would then revert to Minnesota. So Tim Conley, for everything that you could say if you weren't a big fan of the Cat trade when it happened last October, right before the NBA season, and with Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo coming back, well, now you have an asset here. Either you could make a pick with the 17th overall selection, or Conley can wheel and deal to move up. There have been numerous reports out there over the last, I'd say, 24 hours that they are trying to do just that the Wolves are trying to maybe move up to the top 10, top 12, to move into that position like they had done in past, like last year, frankly, where they did that. So there's where the Wolves are at 17. After that, the Nets have 4 picks. 4 now. Or 5, excuse me. They have 6 first-round picks? Holy cow. 8 they pick. 19, 26, and 27. I can't hear myself with my own headphones now, but I guess that as long as we're over the air, that's all that matters. Oh, there we go. That's again, Brooklyn's going to be likely doing something tonight, you have to imagine. And then you see the rest of the draft, Celtics, Suns, Clippers to wrap up the first round. And Boston has already been blowing up its roster over the last 2 days since they were well over the apron, as we like to say now in NBA terms, the luxury tax with moving off of Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis over the last couple days. I understand for some tonight, it's roll the back of your heads like I couldn't care less about tonight. I think if you're a Timberwolves fan tonight, this is about positioning and what you can do to improve your team. Between now and obviously when free agency begins next week, what can they do? Knowing what their roster is like, are they going to have Julius Randle and Naz Reid? Are they going to take their player options? What's going to happen there? Are they going to sign him to long term? That's all up for debate and going to be really interesting over the next, I'd say, 7 to 8 days of what this basketball team is going to look like when the next season turns around. I think we all were under the impression after the season ended with a loss to Oklahoma City that Nickeil Alexander-Walker was going to move on, that he was likely going to be outpriced by what the Wolves could afford. Other parts of the roster, meaning Naz and Julius Randle, that was up for debate. And beyond that, who knows on the back end of it. I think Jalen Clark probably deserves some time to play after what you saw from him in splashes last year. I definitely think Terrence Shannon Jr. deserves minutes. He's got to get out there on the floor. And if Dillingham, if they don't believe that he's the guy, then maybe there's an asset there they can move off of. You know, they traded up to get him this time last year in the draft. That would seem like it'd be a little early and maybe premature to break up, but if you figure that you are close, and I don't know how close they are to OKC. We saw Indiana and Denver push the Thunder to 7. The Wolves didn't seem like they were in the same class when they faced OKC like Denver did and like Indiana did. Minnesota seemed they were out of sorts, couldn't hang on to the ball. And yeah, I know they beat them by 40 in one game, but boy, that that seems like a complete aberration because after that OKC, the 4 wins that they got against Minnesota seemed like there was a clear they are much better than the Wolves. So that's the backdrop for tonight to see what can potentially happen. But there's going to be no drama off the top. Flag is going to Dallas. And you pair him now with Kyrie Irving, with Anthony Davis. That is now granted, I know Kyrie's hurt, not going to be back till late next year. Another one of the NBA superstars that got injured. He tore his ACL, go on top of the Tatum Achilles, Damian Lillard Achilles, the Tyrese Halliburton Achilles. Those are superstars that are likely out for all or most of next season, which is tough. But Flag's going to be expected to come in and dominate. And if you watched any college basketball this year, he did. He was a dominant force at Duke. He got his team to the Final Four with a team that was loaded, frankly, at Duke with a couple of one-and-dones. Conca-Nipple's the other guy who's going to go probably in the top 7 or 8 picks tonight. That's at least to me, I'll be interested to see the top 10 and what the Wolves do. After that, tomorrow's going to be for if Grant Nelson will get drafted. And I just got confirmation on this. Grant's going to join us tomorrow on the show, I believe at 10 o'clock tomorrow. So that'll be pretty excited to hear from the Devil's Lake wonderkind on what he's been hearing. He's worked out for a bunch of teams. Could somebody use a late pick on him tomorrow? There's 59 overall picks in the draft. 30 tonight, 29 tomorrow. Whether that he's one of them remains to be seen, but that's on the table, and we'll chat with him about that tomorrow. But that's the draft for tonight. So we've got NBA tonight and tomorrow. NHL draft then goes Friday and Saturday, and then you could put the winter sports to bed after the free agency period of basically next week. And then after that, we're on to basically baseball, and then the scary part, I believe we have college football media days beginning in a week and a half. So there you go. College football season right around the corner. So that's the draft preview, and we'll dissect that in full. My last thing on this before we wrap and get to a break, I would expect the Wolves to be busy tonight. Last year, obviously, they didn't have any pick, and then somehow Connolly maneuvered it, and they got into the first round, and bam, then they had Rob Dillingham and Terrence Shannon Jr. I would anticipate something tonight. The way he's gone about it, whether it be the Rudy trade, the Cat trade, last year at the draft, just expect the unexpected. That's why just don't sleep on tonight, even if you're not into it. If you're a fan of the Wolves, they're going to do something tonight. We're due for a break. We come back. Former Bison standout Jayden Price will join us on signing with the New Orleans Saints after a great run in the United Football League this past year. That's coming up when Hot Mike returns. We're back in 3.5 minutes. Welcome back, everybody. Hot Mike rolls on a busy Wednesday. Mayville's Landon Koenig will join us in about a half hour, chat about him heading to the SEC to pitch at Ole Miss coming up next baseball season. That's about a half hour away. Our next guest we featured on our Best of the Weekend on Monday after a dynamite year in the United Football League. He's heading back to the National Football League with the New Orleans Saints. Jayden Price joins us this morning after a record 71 games at North Dakota State. He has the all-time punt return touchdown record in school history, and he joins us this morning. It's great to see you, bud. Congratulations. I was just joking with you off air. This is similar to the 2021. Hey, you played in the spring, had about a month off, and then played again in the fall. You got this going, but I'm sure you'll take it considering you're heading back to the NFL.
100%. Quick turnaround. It's going to be a lot on the body, but couldn't ask for anything different. This was the plan going into the year, and glad it's worked out the way it has. All
right, so give us the lowdown. Your agent is, I'm assuming, in contact with everybody. Give it when he says, "Hey, the Saints are interested." Give us the story on how this all came about.
Yeah. So my last game was June 1st. We didn't end up making the playoffs, so there was about a 2-week buffer there where till the 16th of June until the end of the playoffs were done, nobody could sign a UFL player. So I was pretty much just on a 2-week recruiting cycle. I went out to Denver for a tryout, went down to New Orleans for a tryout. And then it was kind of just wait until the 16th, and hopefully the 16th someone comes calling, and thankfully the Saints came calling. And we were able to work something out and able to go down there for training camp. So super excited, super blessed for the opportunity, and just ready to get down there and get to work.
You mentioned it was like a recruiting trip. So what do they have you do when you go for a tryout?
I say it as in recruiting trip just because I was going from team to team. But when I go there, it's pretty much just I have to get a physical, do a bunch of medical stuff. And then they bring me in, meet the coaching staff, and then do a quick 30-minute workout. And then pretty much I'm out of there. They'll fly me back out that night. So it's a long but a quick day. So couldn't ask for anything better.
When you get the phone call from your agent, the Saints want to sign you. What's the emotion like for you?
Just super ecstatic, super excited. Just blessed. I was grateful for the opportunity, but I was super happy and super proud that everything that I was wanting to do and planned to do in the UFL just turned to fruition, and I was able to get another opportunity. And just super, super grateful for that.
So, JP, I got to ask about the UFL experience because you had a dynamite, I thought, training camp last year with Atlanta, and they ended up obviously releasing you. So, at the last August, tell me what that is like. Like, okay, I didn't make a team, and then what you're kind of out there. So tell us from there on what happened.
It was pretty crazy. About a week after I got released from Atlanta, I went up to Hamilton, Ontario, and played in the CFL for the Hamilton Tiger Cats. I was up there for 4 weeks. Played in one game. So that was hectic. Business is business. Stuff doesn't always work out the way you think it does. So ended up coming back here to the States, and then the UFL gave me a call, and I was like, yeah, I would love to be interested, love to do that. So went down to the UFL at the end of February, and been up there, been there ever since. I just got home about a week or so ago, but yeah, it was pretty hectic. It was pretty crazy.
So for those that didn't follow the UFL, that's all based out of one spot, right? But you play in different areas. Can you describe what that was like?
Yeah, so Arlington is the headquarters. And so they have a UFL headquarters building that it's about 4 stories, and it's kind of split in half. So you got 4 teams on one side, 4 teams on the other.
Okay.
All have their own floors and own areas or whatever. You got your meeting rooms, meal rooms, treatment rooms, all in those areas. So yeah, you're walking in and out of the facilities, and I'm running into Nash Jensen every other week, just going through the facilities. And then, so like, since I was on Arlington, I was fortunate enough, we actually got like true home games, but all the other teams, you have to fly, away teams and home teams fly to their respective city, on the same plane together, and then fly back on the same plane together. So all the logistics it's kind of different. It's kind of hard to get used to. But you just, just control what you can control. It all worked out. It really wasn't too weird or awkward. It was just a little different. I had to get used to it. So
can you describe? I watched a bit. I watched a couple of your games. We got highlights of you playing. What was the level of football like? Did it surprise you and how good it was?
A little bit. I wouldn't say it necessarily surprised me, just seeing all the, kind of former NFL guys being in the league, some big time names and stuff like that. But it was really good football. It was really high level, really, intense, competitive, and it was just a lot of fun. And I was just happy to be out there, and I was having a lot of fun. I was playing with a high level of confidence, and just loved being out there playing football.
How much did the experience in Atlanta help for what you just did this spring? That you went and did it, did that transfer over to what you did in the spring?
Yeah, I think so, 100%. I felt good with what I put on tape down in Atlanta, and felt like if I just continued to do so, then I'd be in a good spot and get another opportunity. And thankfully here we are.
So what have the Saints told you about what they're expecting or hoping to get out of you?
There hasn't been too many conversations there. They're kind of on vacation now here after that minicamp wrapped up. But, they like me at corner. Obviously, this past UFL season, my corner tape, I think I developed quite a bit, especially in man coverage. And they want to see me excel there, and then they love my return game as well. So I think I'll get some opportunities there. So, I love to hear that. That's music to my ears. So I'm super excited about that.
Okay, what was the preseason experience like with Atlanta last year? You played a lot. I know you took advantage of every opportunity you could get out there. What did you take from that? And maybe what do we not know about preseason NFL that you can maybe share with us?
Super intense, it's super cutthroat. Like, you never know when your last day is going to be. So you're on your P's and Q's every single day. It was a great experience. I loved every bit about it. I was soaking everything in, every chance I had, having as many conversations with people as I could, meeting new people, stuff like that. But it was great. The level of football, just the amount of knowledge, that those guys have to be so successful at their jobs and everything was super mesmerizing to me. I was trying to pick Jesse Bates, AJ Terrell's brain as much as I could. Just those guys are extremely smart, and it makes perfect sense why they're so good at what they do.
How much have you found out that football is a business now? I know you love the game, but it is, like you mentioned, cutthroat. It's business. Can you describe that?
Oh yeah, business is business. Yeah. It doesn't matter what you did yesterday. It all depends on what product you put on the field today. And some stuff might not work out solely based on something you didn't do. You had no control over.
Yeah.
It's just business side of things, the front office side of things and stuff like that. Numbers are always the big question, and stuff like that. So it's really just a cutthroat business, and you can't ever get too high, can't ever get too low. So
I got to ask, was after the Falcons let you go, did you think this might be it?
Honestly, no. I had a pretty good. I knew just everything that I put on tape that there's no way I didn't get another opportunity. So I was super hopeful, and I was crossing my fingers. Of course, it's always in the back of your head, but I felt really good in the spot that I was in, and stuff like that. So that was a good feeling.
So you got about a month before the Saints open camp. Just describe now, going back into this again, knowing you've done it before. How much of that muscle memory can you count on for training camp and for preseason to say I can be one of the 53 guys on the roster?
For sure, yeah. I think it gives me a whole lot of confidence. Just knowing that this is my second time going into a training camp. I feel like I'm in a great spot. I've done it once, so I'm not looking over my shoulder every chance or every corner I take and stuff like that. I'll be able to be more even keel. I'll be able to approach it a lot better, and stuff like that. I'll, hopefully be able to ask better questions, know stuff like that, pick people's brains and whatnot. So I feel really comfortable at where I'm at, and going into it for my second time.
JP, this seems like an obvious question, but what did NDSU prepare you for the next level? How did they prepare you for the next level?
The level of football, just the knowledge that they teach us, instill in us, that we have to know to be successful at NDSU will make us successful anywhere else. We play a high level of football. The defensive install at NDSU is the biggest defensive install I've ever installed anywhere I've ever been. So just the amount of knowledge that we learn at North Dakota State has set me up anywhere I've ever been.
To see a couple of your former teammates get drafted this past couple months ago, I know you're in the middle of playing. What did that mean to you to see with what happened with Cam and Gray, and then a bunch of other guys get deals that are going to be in the league this upcoming year?
For sure, super exciting. Super happy for those guys. I think I shot every guy that signed and every guy that got drafted his text message. Just super ecstatic for them. Hopefully run into them here this fall at some point. And that's what it's all about, is just having those connections from where you played to school and just continue it out however long you can. And just super excited, super happy for those guys, and know they're going to do great things.
There's 20 guys in the league now. 20. I shake my head at that number. When you hear that, what goes through your mind?
Just proud, just not surprised at all. Just super proud. Every guy deserves it, and that's just a testament to what North Dakota State is. We produce good football players, and we play good football, and that's a testament to that.
When you think back of, I don't know if we've told this story on the air, so you got to share about your recruiting trip up here, or at least your first pitch. What did you know about NDSU, and who was the first to contact you from up here?
The first who contacted me was Brian Shepard.
Oh, okay.
Corners coach,
yeah.
And he's actually from Olathe, Kansas, so that was kind of the connection there. And I knew a little bit about North Dakota State. Obviously, being in Kansas, they beat K-State in 2012. So I was a little young then, but I knew of hearing about it. And then Iowa, I remember watching the Iowa game when they beat Iowa. I remember watching that. And so I knew about them. And then when I didn't really know much about Fargo when I came up to Fargo. So when I got up there, it was kind of just hooking up with the football players, and they were kind of showing us around and taking us where to go and showing us what there is to do in Fargo. And, it was a great time. I loved it, obviously fell in love with it and stuck with it and just couldn't be more grateful for what North Dakota State has provided me.
All right, so what is the layoff here for football like for you? You've been going nonstop. You got to get ready here in about 3 weeks. What are you doing now? You say getting away from the game, or are you still working out?
I took about a week and a half, 2 weeks off. Kind of just resting the body, resting the legs. I started back training last week. Just slow, kind of get back into it. And I'll start running next week. I've kind of given the legs a little bit of a break. But I'll start running this next week all the way up until camp and start training. I'll probably take a few days off around the 4th of July, but just trying to take care of my body, stuff like that, and just put me in the best position possible going into July 22nd. So
it's great to see you, man. Good luck. Congratulations on getting back in the NFL. Congrats on a great spring, and thanks for the time this morning. Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Dom. It's really great to see you. I appreciate you having me on.
Good to see you, bud. There he goes. Jayden Price, former Bison standout corner, now heading back to the National Football League, signed with the New Orleans Saints over the weekend after a season in the UFL, had 27 tackles, 13 passes defended. That was the best in the UFL this past season. And we mentioned it last fall, he was really playing well with Atlanta during preseason football. And no, it's a numbers game. Obviously, there's only so many that can make the 53-man roster. Got a quick stint in Canada, went and did this past spring season. And I know many probably don't watch the spring football league. The ratings certainly would indicate that. But there have been players that have come out and done it. And Zach Johnson did the same road, former Bison offensive lineman that is now with San Francisco. He was, I believe, the offensive lineman of the year is when we visited with him last year in the United Football League, and now a dynamite year for JP to get a chance now with the Saints. And we appreciate his time there. We'll break. We'll come back. We'll wrap up our first hour, big second hour plan, including talking the Gophers getting the #1 recruit in the state of Minnesota. We're back on Hot Mic on a Hump Day Wednesday after this. Welcome back, everybody. Hot Mic wrapping up our first hour. Thanks to Jayden Price for giving us a couple minutes there. That was good stuff. From Mulvane, Kansas, all the way to now the New Orleans Saints. Guy that redshirted way back 2018. I mean, he played 6 years at NDSU. So it was a redshirt at 18, played sparingly in 19. The fall of 20. Actually, that one fall game the Bison had against Central Arkansas, he had a pick. It was his first career interception that sealed the game against UCA. That was Trey Lance's final game as a Bison way back when in October of 2020. And then he became the starting corner for NDSU when Josh Hayes, you'll remember, left in the middle of that weird spring season, talking the spring now of 2021. And he never left the lineup after that for the spring of 21, fall of 21, and then fall of 22 and the fall of 23. I think his fondest memory probably be the big punt return touchdown he had against South Dakota to ice that game in the second quarter, maybe the end of the first quarter when we were down in Vermillion for the quarterfinals a couple years ago. Just turned into an elite playmaker. Anytime he had the ball, he was looking for the end zone, and most often he found it, including 5 times for punt return touchdowns during his career with NDSU. And just adds to the litany guy. We spoke with 3 guys yesterday that are in the National Football League on the offensive side of the ball. Give the defense some credit for what they have. Chris Board is going into his 8th year in the NFL at the linebacker spot. What a career that he's turned out after starting 1 season in Fargo for the Bison. That's awfully impressive what he's done. So it's going to be dynamite to follow, And that I asked him about, JP, about this before we wrap up our opening hour on, because I understand the appeal of adding another regular season game. It's going to happen. We're going to get to 18 regular season NFL games and drop down to 2 preseason. And I think the goal is maybe to have 0 preseason and 20 regular season games. And that would be a detriment to guys like Jayden Price, to guys that are trying to make rosters and get on a team. Ben Ellison did that a few years back, how big that preseason football was for him. Derek Tuska did that same road. That's the where those games are valuable are for those kind of players, ones that are either drafted late, 5th, 6th, 7th round guy, or an undrafted that go and make rosters, and they have a chance to go play actual games. And the desire now to get rid of, we're at 3, and eventually we're going to be at 2, and who knows from there. That could come at the expense of those kind of players trying to make NFL rosters. And I understand the ultimate desire here is for more television revenue and to play more games, because you can get certainly more money for regular season games than you can for any preseason games. And also for the owners, they can charge regular season ticket prices for said games. That may come at the expense of these kind of stories. And that's too bad, because you'll know that the first and second round and third round guys, they get guaranteed money. They're going to make the team. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. It's the guys lower down that, okay, then they have no shot of making it. And that's the troubling part. That's why I think the union may fight back on that, but that's a whole other – they got their own issues right now with collusion going on with the NFL and its owners and its players' union with the story that was broke a couple days ago. But that would come at the expense of those kind of stories. And shout out to the United Football League. I know people that don't watch it, don't think it's very good. It's produced players that are getting up to the NFL and getting shots to play, or guys that have contributed on NFL teams. So it can't be that bad of football. Appreciate JP giving us a few minutes there. We'll break. We come back. We'll start our second hour. We'll talk some baseball. We come back. Landon Koenig on going from Mayville to NDSU to now to Ole Miss. That's coming up. We start hour 2 on a Wednesday morning. Back after this.
This is Hot Mike. Hot Mike. On the networks of WDAY. Here's Dom Izzo.
Welcome back, everybody. Wednesday morning Hump Day show rolls on. We'll chat some college football recruit news coming up in about a half hour. The Gophers landing Roman Voss out of Jackson County Central over Alabama. Big news for a lot of Gopher fans of this part of the world. That's coming up in about a half hour. Pumped to have our next guest on. Obviously, we followed the great run that the North Dakota State baseball team went on over the last 6 weeks of the season, culminating in a Summer League Tournament championship, a win in the NCAA tournament after they knocked off Kansas and lost a heartbreaker to Creighton. After that, the portal opened and 6 standout players departed, including our next guest, who is going from Portland, North Dakota, to the SEC in Oxford, Mississippi, as Landon Koenig joins us on the show this morning. Congratulations, my man. It's still kind of, I saw it, I'm like, holy cow, SEC. You're living it. So has it sunk in yet?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think it'll sink in once we get down there. And, spend the first week, get the first practices in, and just kind of meet everyone and kind of go through that first little time. But, yeah, it's a really cool opportunity and just incredibly blessed for it.
All right, so give us the lowdown, bud. After the season ends, is transferring at the top of your mind, or how did this all come about?
Yeah, I would say for the last, 3 weeks, no one had anything on their mind but playing baseball. It was just go as deep as you can and win as many games as you can. And then, after that, there's just no plans. That's all you have to do. And then after the year comes, it was I felt like that was the right opportunity for me. I think with my situation individually, I think that gave me the best opportunity to achieve some of my goals. So I think it was the second day was open. I went in and then the chaos kind of started.
We've heard this on the football, certainly in basketball route. I've not talked to anybody in baseball. Can you describe what that was like? I mean, the phone blowing up. What was the few days after that like for you?
Yeah, so I think I got in around 3 p.m. on the second day. And that day was super busy. It was about until 9:30 I was on the phone. And then every day after that, it was pretty much scheduled 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. every day. And it'd be a combination of emails, phone calls, texts, just kind of whatever. And it was schools from an array. You'd have some D2 schools reach out, but then you'd have every conference kind of in the middle, and then you'd have every conference up top. It was just kind of a big spread. So it was super interesting kind of to see everyone's kind of a little sales pitch right away.
Yeah.
But then really seeing through that, that's when you really met some amazing people, and you really got some cool connections.
Did they know anything about you, Landon? Like, could you discern? Okay, this guy actually knows something about me, or this one just read something on the website. Could you tell?
A little bit, but it's tough. They're good at their job. But there are some guys from the area, especially from like the Midwest, upper Midwest. That maybe have like heard about me or knew me a little bit, or talked to somebody that did know me. So there was some of those conversations, and it was kind of cool. It's a really small world once you get talking about it. You get a lot of like similar connections and people But yeah, honestly, it was more than I thought. People knew a lot, and it was super cool to have those conversations.
All right, so what are you looking to hear? I guess what's your music to your ears about? Okay, I'd be interested in this school. Was there anything you had on a sheet of paper like I want to hear this?
Yeah, not necessarily, but I had a priority list.
Yeah.
So I think first and foremost for me was individual development and a history of that. Taking guys from like a good starting pitcher, a good pitcher in college baseball to an elite level where you can go have a long career in professional baseball. Because I think for most players at this level now, and certainly for me, that's my goal. And there's tons of steps along the way to get there. But that was first and foremost. Secondly was the people, the right fit. I think you have to have that because that makes the whole process of working your tail off every day and just having it going, putting your nose down and grinding every day. It makes it so much easier when everyone around you has the same goal. Then thirdly, it was just like the opportunity to someone to see me as the starting role, and then going and earning that because I think you get limited when you get brought in as a pen guy.
Mm-hmm.
So certainly going into an opportunity where their starting position is open and they see you in that role and a guy that can fit that and make a meaningful impact right away.
So why Ole Miss? Obviously, they must have checked all the boxes you just talked about, but what stood out when you heard from them?
Yeah, I think their pitching coach is great. Their phone calls they had right away with Lafferty and Mangrum. They were some of my best phone calls immediately. I made a list of schools kind of before I went on visits, and they were right at the top. So I think for me, it was the fit with the people, and then when you get down there and you actually hear what they're going to do with you in their everyday process, and then obviously like it's a cool environment down there. But I think there is a lot of cool environments, and you can't get sucked into that. So I think for me, really honing down to my priority list and going with the development, the people, and the opportunity, I thought it was the best fit for me.
You've matched up with some SEC schools, obviously in your time at NDSU. You know full well the level of baseball. How intimidating, how challenging, how much do you welcome that kind of challenge for where you're going to go?
Yeah, no, I think it's cool because I think everyone at this level, especially now, wants to be a good major leaguer. And I think that is only going to push everyone in there, in that conference and in those vicinities to become the best version of themselves. And I think that's what I hope that happens to me. I want to go out there and prove that I belong and, go earn my spot, earn an opportunity and, work my tail off throughout the year and help me get to the end goal and go to Omaha.
What was eye-opening or surprising about this whole process for you?
I think it was just the amount of teams and how hard those coaches work. Like those coaches are relentless. There'd be some schools I get 3-4 calls a day from the same one. There was just kind of some differences in how they went about it.
Yeah.
Because there are some schools that would throw they would just tell you're going to be this. They'd promise stuff, and that was a pretty big turnoff to me. Just because I know it's not true. I've been around college baseball long enough, but that's not how it works. But that was kind of eye opening, kind of to see how everyone went about their business differently. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of genuine people out there. There's a lot of good people in college baseball.
Okay, so let me go back. So were they promising like amount of starts or how many innings? Is that what you're talking about on the phone call?
Yeah, it would be like a Friday starter.
Yeah,
they'd say some other stuff, kind of along the lines of like a role or an opportunity or what they have for you resources wise, kind of some stuff like that, and that's just not how it works. So
you saw through that one right away, huh?
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's no matter where you are in college baseball, if you're not doing well, they got to put the best product on the field. So
you mentioned your role this year, that you were the number 3 guy last season. You were mainly out of the bullpen this year. How do you feel like that change the way you pitched, or how did that maybe even elevate that you came in, you pitched obviously the game against Arkansas. I'm sure that caught people's attentions for how well you pitched in that game, that you had to transition your role this season.
Right. I think that was one of the reasons that this decision kind of came into prospect for me. I think it was kind of surprising right away when we talked about it, and I really wasn't for it. I thought I could impact the team more in the starting role, and I think this year we bounced back. We had just a couple of different options. We never had it stable. So I think like that would, for me, especially this year, would have been a good fit. But saw differently and was in the pen, and then I think from the first month and a half, just trying to get used to it, and like knowing when you're coming, how your warm up routine's going to go, and then through the winter you kind of build it, and this season you really test it out, see what works. And then towards the end of the year, middle of the year, I kind of figured out what works for me, knew what situations I was going to go in, and that made it a lot easier. But I think coming out of the pen changes the way you pitch. I think when you're planning on seeing a lineup 3 times in the starting rotation, you mix more, you show different patterns. So I think for me that kind of hurt me in the pen a little bit that way.
I look at it, Landon, where the guys that went in all landed at Power 4 schools. What kind of tells you the level of talent that was at NDSU this year?
Yeah, I think it not only speaks to the talent, but just like the genuine people that we have at NDSU. Just like really good dudes. Like they're just good people outside of baseball. And then obviously they're very talented. Like being at NDSU, you have the blue collar, you have the work ethic, you have all that. And then it's just a matter of going and doing it. And I think the guys we had, especially on last year's team, they're just great dudes and ton of work ethic, and obviously they're really skilled. But like a lot of lifelong friends that sadly aren't going to be at school with me next year. But we'll stay close and we'll keep talking.
So you and I chatted last year about your whole recruitment, about no one really knew about you. Now you're going from Mayport CG to next year pitching at Ole Miss. Has that computed yet?
Yeah, not really. It's all been so fast. I think the last 2 years for me have been big. I think just developing as a baseball player, as a person, and then getting this opportunity. I'm just incredibly blessed. I couldn't have seen this coming, but I think now that I'm in this position, just being super grateful and like looking back and reflecting on the opportunities I've had and the opportunities I have going forward, it really means a lot. It's super special.
You've been on the phone. Has the dad been able to drag you out on the farm at all, or what?
Yeah, not too much. We're just picking up stuff from the storm right now. But we'll probably have to replant a little bit, and we're just picking up trees, and we had a couple buildings fall. But,
okay, I was going to ask
too crazy.
How bad did it get up there?
Yeah, we lost a hay barn and we lost another shed.
Wow.
But just a ton of trees. Yeah, I mean, people have it way worse than us. I know there's a lot of people that have lost everything, lost their homes. People lost their lives, but we're just lucky nothing serious happened. No one got hurt, so.
I have to ask, seeing LSU win the national championship this past weekend, knowing you pitched against them, you guys played them. How do you feel about that? We played them. We had the lead on them. I mean, how do you feel about that? Seeing that they won the whole thing.
Yeah, it kind of sucks because we could have won that game. A few things don't go your way, but yeah, no, it's cool. I think kind of through this process, when you talk to some of these coaches. That are still playing, and like you call them before they play that day and kind of just talk to them about the game or whatever. And it's super cool. Like especially with them, like there's a lot of good dudes there, and obviously they're really good. But just like the people you meet when you play college baseball, it's really special. But yeah, like being in opportunities like that and having the environments that you do in the early season in NDSU, it really helps you get ready for your long season and hopefully a long career playing baseball.
Knowing, Landon, that's going to be the regular. That's what you're facing. It's no longer you're going to get Omaha, and no slight to Omaha or Northern Colorado. It's going to be LSU. It's going to be Alabama. It's going to be Arkansas every time out. What mental challenge is that going to be for you?
No, I think you have to welcome it. Like if you don't want to compete against the best, I think you're in the wrong thing. I think when you go and play at the highest level of college sports and anything, you have to welcome that, and to me, that's exciting. I want to go be against that competition every day. I want to have a routine that is up and up against the best, And I think proving that on a daily basis will be super crucial for me next year, and then also just like my development in the future.
So what's ahead for people know here? What's the timeline of when you got to get to Oxford?
Yeah, I'll probably head down there mid-July after the 4th of July, somewhere around there. Not sure on an exact date, but yeah, just been working out, been throwing, and doing mobility, arm care, soft tissue stuff. Kind of just get my body ready in a good spot for the fall. Staying in shape from the season. But yeah, I'll build back up for throwing, get down there mid-July, and then just get ready for the fall and get to work.
How much did Coach Bianco know about you? Like, how much interaction did you have prior to going down there?
Yeah, I actually didn't talk to him prior to going down there. But I had a lot of hours of phone calls. I
think we froze up there for a second, bud. That's all right. We're going to go anyway. If you can hear me, bud. Thanks for doing this, and congratulations. Landon Koenig there from Portland, North Dakota on transferring. He's heading from North Dakota State to Ole Miss to continue his baseball career there. And it's been a shot up since he arrived at NDSU. And I really appreciate how forthright he was with his role. That there was some displeasure there. He was not the number 3 option like he was in 2024. I haven't spoken to Tyler Oakes or Brandon Hunt, the assistant coach, on that. If that was a legit gripe or how that all played out, that's I can't give you any inside intel there. Knowing that there was going to be a handful of guys that were going to potentially move on, that's kind of the deal. Sorry, we got him back. Sorry, bud. You were talking about your relationship or what you're talking with the Ole Miss coach before heading down there.
Yeah, sorry, I just
That's all
froze
right.
there. I talked to him a lot over the phone. I didn't talk to Bianco personally, but when we got down there, we sat down in his office for probably an hour and a half, an hour. We had a really good talk, and it wasn't just really about me or like baseball stuff. It was just getting to know him and just talking, and I think that was really cool. It kind of speaks like how they go about their business. They build the relationship with you, so it's super easy to work hard for them and in that program. So I think that's what I'm excited for.
To have this over and done with now, how excited are you now to know, okay, this is my immediate future?
Yeah, it's a relief. Honestly, like it was a little stressful.
Yeah.
But then once you kind of get your priorities back in check and you figure out, okay, do I really see myself at this place? Is it really worth taking another phone call? And that was kind of the thing for me. I took too many phone calls right away, just trying to talk to everyone and build relationships, kind of see where everyone's at. But then towards the end, it was super relieving to have. For me, I had 3 or 4 schools that I was really interested in, and I could really see myself in. So I think that was a big blessing for me, just having the opportunity to be at 3 places, 4 places that I can really see myself and flourish there and get to my goals. So I think for me, it was kind of just narrowing down relationships, their process, and how they go about their business. So that's kind of how I made a decision. But yeah, it's super relieving to have it over, and but I wouldn't have it any other way.
It's great to see you, bud. Congratulations, and we'll catch up when you get down there, okay?
Sounds good. Thank you, Dom.
Appreciate it, bud. Landon Koenig joining us from Portland, North Dakota, as he's heading to the SEC and Ole Miss. The Rebels just looking, and I'm not going to sit here and say I'm a great Ole Miss baseball mind, 43-21 this past season. Of course, another dynamite team in the SEC made it to the tournament. They actually had their run ended by one Murray State. Crazy run that the Racers made all the way to the College World Series. They beat them in the regional. It was in Oxford, and Koenig's going there. And just to wrap up my one point on what he was talking about, do I know that's the case with Davis Hamilton, with Nolan Johnson, with Jake Schaffner? No. I think that was probably unique to Landon's situation there. Schaffner, I think all of us knew, watching Jake play the last couple of years, his trajectory was going to be beyond NDSU. I don't think there was any surprise he ended up at North Carolina. Nolan Johnson has, I think, a year left. Logan Knight went to Cincinnati. Logan Johnson's at TCU. Davis Hamilton went to Minnesota. Now Logan is going to Ole Miss. That's how much they're going to get, that's the other question that's out there. I'm sure Schaffner got quite a bit. Not sure about these other guys, but if they're going to those kind of programs, sure they're not getting zero. It's not the way it works, but I'm sure there was maybe some, at least for Logan, some dissatisfaction in what his role was going to be for this year, maybe going forward. You don't know. That's a question maybe for another time when we have Tyler Oakes to discuss it. Either way, he's now in the SEC, and we appreciate his time, and we'll be keeping an eye once the 2026 spring season gets going next February. We're due for a break. We caught up here on a couple of things, including Wisconsin still doesn't want to have a shot clock in high school basketball. What's going on in your state? North Dakota, Minnesota's got it. Wisconsin can't. It's coming up when Hot Mike returns after this. All right, welcome back, everybody. Our thanks to Landon Koenig giving us a few minutes here. Hey, tomorrow, again, we'll have Grant Nelson join us tomorrow at 10. Easton Stick will be in studio with us at 10:30. So we got a power hour of pretty good guests coming tomorrow on the show. Looking forward to that. I saw this yesterday, so I have to defer to our executive producer who hails from the great state of Wisconsin. The story that came out yesterday that Wisconsin High School League Association decided to vote down implementing shot clock in high school basketball it was going to be for non-conference games for this year with full implementation next season. The arguments against, and bear with me, Minnesota residents, you've heard this one before, some schools, particularly smaller and rural schools, have expressed concerns about the cost of implementing and operating a shot clock, as well as the potential need for additional staffing. I believe those were the exact reasons that were given numerous times over for a decade plus that we covered this in Minnesota. Can you defend your state on this? What in the world are we doing? What happened here?
I can't defend my state at all in this. But they need to figure it out because it's getting bad. I've been able to watch games on YouTube, and some of these teams are just holding the ball.
Well, there's got to be something else beyond this in terms of reasoning, because that's lame. Is there some other thing that we don't know about that they wouldn't want to do it?
No.
Wow.
It's pathetic.
Wow. Well, the fact that North Dakota was out in front of this is shocking enough because normally North Dakota is not, and then Minnesota was trailing them. Frankly, I didn't know Wisconsin didn't have a shot clock. I thought they were one of the states that did. But
the thing is a lot of the bigger schools are already fit for it. Like,
yeah,
they have shot clocks above the rim.
Yeah.
Like, there's no reason why we can't have one.
Yeah. Moorhead was the same way, and there were plenty of schools like that. Like Moorhead had it all set. There were many others, especially with the schools that are getting newer gyms, already had it set to go. So the implementation thing is just bogus to me.
I remember just a few years ago, maybe a little longer than that, maybe 5 years ago, a team made it all the way to state by holding the ball. They scored 40 points a game, and they made it to state. And
no one wants to see that. That's not fun.
It's a true state tournament in Wisconsin, where other states it's not. You're not going up against your section. You can go from Milwaukee to Superior to play. So you're getting good teams, but the games were just boring.
Yeah, that's not the kind of basketball you want to see. Not without a shot clock.
I want to see a run and gun.
Yeah.
Press full court the whole game, scoring 80 points.
If Dave Creston at Perham can do it, then anybody could. And that's all I'll say on that. That the fact that they could adapt and use it, then what are we doing, Wisconsin? That's all I got to say on that. Real quick before we break, our friend Craig Haley released this morning. I was just taking a look at this. He's got his top 10 games for the upcoming FCS season. Because we're closing in. What are we at today? We're 66 days out from the 2025 Week 1. So that would make we're 59 days out from Week 0. No surprise that the Bison Jackrabbit game is number 1. The Coyote Bison game here in Fargo, number 2. Brawl the Wild comes in at 3. frankly, the South Dakota State-Montana State game should be higher. He has that at number 4, which is during week 2, that game in Bozeman. I would put that, frankly, behind the Bison and the Jacks. Bison Jacks 1, then Jacks Bobcats would go 2 in my mind. Richmond at Lehigh on the opening weekend of the season. That's now a Patriot League battle since Richmond come next Tuesday is a member of the Patriot League in football. Dartmouth at Harvard. That could be for a playoff spot. Remember, the Ivy League sends its teams to the postseason this year. Tarleton State at Abilene. That is a good game. Those are the 2 of the teams that made it to the FCS tournament last year. Mercer at Western Carolina. Of course, we know what Mercer was last season. The Jackrabbits at USD. That game is Vermillion. That's one of the other ESPN games picked up. And then Idaho at Montana, which is another dynamite game, another ESPN game at the end of September. So that's what Craig's list is there. I would, no pun intended, I would put, again, I put the Jacks game higher. The USD NDSU game is good, and it's a conference opener, and we're super excited we get to broadcast it. But I don't know if it's bigger than the Jacks and Montana State. Just my 2 cents.
There's one game missing.
Which is that?
Probably an honorable mention.
No.
South Dakota State and Sacramento State. Why? But like the storylines in that game right now are
yes,
ready to go.
Yes. After the news yesterday, for those that missed it, and apologies to me that we talked about it on Monday's show. It officially that the Division I Football Oversight Committee rejected Sac State's application to move to FBS as an independent. So now it's over. Is there lawsuits coming? Maybe. What are you going to do? They've said, the NCAA said we're not going to let you up unless you have an invite from a league. And Sac State doesn't have one. And when they let Liberty do it in 2017, again, that's 8 years ago. They're saying it's a much different landscape, and it is, than it was when they let Liberty move up from the FCS without a conference invite. So is litigation coming? It usually is with everything involving this. I would think Sac State has been told no. So what does that mean? Like it's going to be independent football in 2026. They'll play in the Big Sky this year, and then they will be politely asked to leave a year from now. And what that means for the rest of their sports, we know it's the Big West. But for football, as Eric mentioned now, they'll be playing South Dakota State to open up the season in Brookings on August 30th to kick off the 2025 season. We're way overdue for a break. We'll take one now. We come back. Our buddy Ryan Burns will join us, give us the lowdown on the Gophers winning out on Roman Voss. He's coming to play for Minnesota over Alabama. That's coming up. We return after this. Welcome back, everybody. Final half hour of our show on this Wednesday morning. The big news for Gopher football fans have been tipping over cars for the last 48 hours was the news on late Monday afternoon out of Jackson County Central, which is a team we know in this part of the world. They played Barnesville a couple years ago down in the state semis. Their stud, Roman Voss, announced that he is verbally committed to go play football at the University of Minnesota. That normally, would that be news around here? Yeah, he's a good player. It's bigger news. It's statewide news. It's region news because Minnesota beat out Alabama to get Voss to come to their school. There's only one man we need to talk about that, and that's our recruiting guy, Ryan Burns, who covers everything for Gopher football recruiting for Gopher Illustrated, and he's good enough to give us a few minutes. He's been everywhere, all over the airwaves the last couple days on this story. This is one that, Ryan, first off, it's great to see you, bud, that Gopher fans should spike the football on. I don't care however it comes about. They beat Alabama for a guy. They should celebrate for as long as they want, in my mind.
Yeah, well, first of all, I appreciate you having me on, and if there was any other place I'd rather be than this show, I'd rather be drifting spinners out on Lake of the Woods right now, maybe Upper Red, trying to see if I can't get an 18-inch walleye on the boat. But I think a lot of Gopher fans would tell you they feel like they just landed a 30-plus incher in that regard. So, yeah, it's been a very interesting recruiting cycle for PJ Fleck here over the last few weeks, and it culminated here earlier this week with Roman Voss choosing Minnesota. So
How long have they been on this in your mind? How long have they been working to get this kid to come to Minnesota?
Very long time. It's been over a year now since they became his first offer, that being the University of Minnesota. And I think if you were to ask me, and I've been doing this now 15 years of covering Gopher recruiting, this is one of the more interesting recruitments I've followed because Roman Voss is from Jackson, Minnesota, Lakefield, Minnesota, very much near the southern border there. And I think a lot of people in that area, if you were to ask them this time last year, would say that kid's going to go to Iowa, that kid's going to go to Nebraska. I don't know why the Gophers are kind of bothering here, but the way that Minnesota was able to kind of hang in there as then Iowa and Wisconsin came in, and then here this past winter and spring, you saw the more national brands, the historical blue bloods, the USCs and the Alabamas and the Oklahomas come in, and Minnesota just kept swinging. And they ultimately got to the final two where it was Minnesota and Alabama. And I'll also be the first one to tell you, there's a lot of connections between that now Alabama staff in the southern part of the state there because they're just, I think, about an hour and a half drive maybe from Sioux Falls, where Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb had a lot of success. And that part of the state certainly knows it. So not only is it beating Alabama here, it's beating all those connections to that part of the state where I would be the first one to tell you, and I'll tell you here again, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, certainly 15 years ago, that kid's not coming to the Twin Cities. That kid's going to go to Iowa, Nebraska, or in this instance, I think he would have chosen Alabama.
Yeah.
But the way that Minnesota's coaches kept swinging and they ultimately sold him on the Twin Cities, you can go 2.5 hours north and you can go away for college.
He may have come to SDSU or Fargo too, right? I mean, they would have been in that time frame that you're talking about. That the Bison and the Jackrabbits would have been interested as well.
Yeah, and he's got a brother in Rudy who I believe played at South Dakota State, and even 10, 15 years ago, the ability to find a Roman Voss in that era would have been much more difficult than it is in this day and age of 2025, where anybody can put a highlight on the internet and I can find it from Stanley, North Dakota to Kindred, North Dakota to wherever in between. It's so much easier in 2025 than it was in 2015, but yeah, it's a heck of a recruiting win for PJ Fleck and his staff.
You and I follow this stuff really closely, but for the average Gopher fan, is this how big a deal have you registered over the last 2 days that they got this kid? Has it resonated with the fan that goes to Huntington Bank Stadium, but they only care about the Gophers on Saturdays?
Sure. Yeah, I think it has resonated. I think that not only is he the top player in the state, this is now the third consecutive year PJ has been able to land that. Now, I know it's technically 5 if you want to include Jackson Howard, who is now transferred back to the University of Minnesota. But let's stick with the facts being the facts and not get a little bit into the gray area. I think a lot of it, especially fans can now see that, what does it mean? Coy Parrish electing to stay home back 18 months ago when Ryan Day is flying into Duluth Airport, which is going to be one of my favorite stories to tell for the next X amount of years, because I can't remember the last time that a blue blood head coach, the Friday before National Signing Day, is flying into Duluth. Look, I have spent a lot of time in Duluth in my life. I love grandmas. I love all the different little nuanced spots there. But when the head coach at Ohio State's flying into town there on his private jet to come see someone, it's a big deal. And you saw the impact that he can make. Now, it's a lot easier in my mind for a high school safety to make an impact immediately than it might be a collegiate tight end. But I'm not doubting anything against Roman Voss. But certainly the amount of text messages or if you want to talk about traffic on wherever it is has certainly gone up, where I think the casual fan sees the number one kid stays home again. But not only that, it's you beat Alabama for him.
That's a big deal. They're also waiting today, I believe, on the number 4 kid in the state of Minnesota, and Peterson, who plays out of Triton High School, which is in Dodge Center. It's between Minnesota and Penn State. We were visiting off air on this. What's your gut tell you about his decision today?
Yeah, we'll see what he ends up deciding. If you ask me to go with my gut, I would tell you it's probably going to be Penn State. Penn State sees him as more of a tight end, and with Tyler Warren and everything that they were able to do with him, I think it makes a lot of sense. And Minnesota sees him more as a linebacker. But that being said, there's no doubt that Peterson is one of the best athletes in the state of Minnesota. If you just look at what he did in the state track meet, I think he placed in 4 different events, which is, for a kid who's 6'5", from anywhere from running to jumping, that's an incredible accomplishment. I mean, he's just one of those kind of rare athletes that you don't see too often in this state. but we'll see what he ends up deciding.
Yeah.
If you had to ask me right now, which you obviously are, I would tell you I think he's going to go to Penn State, but I know the Gophers and are still kind of awaiting a decision as we sit here.
Not only did they get the number one player in Minnesota, Ryan, they got the number one player in Wisconsin, which my executive producer is a Wisconsin guy, so he's probably going to mute you on this. But how big a deal was that to go and get Gavin Meyer out of Wisconsin?
Well, I'll also remind you, producer, this isn't the first time Minnesota has gone into the state of Wisconsin and landed the number one kid. And the previous one being Nathan Roy, who Minnesota could potentially be starting as a redshirt freshman at left tackle here this fall. So not only to rub a little bit of salt into the wound there, but it has been such an interesting kind of dynamic to look across Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Iowa here, because I think kids are changing, where so many, even 5, 10, 15 years ago, it's you get this offer, you're a Wisconsin kid, you're going to the Badgers, you're going to Madison, or you're from the state of Iowa, you're going to go to the state of Iowa. Or even 5, 10 years ago, I'll be the first one to tell you, these Minnesota kids didn't always have an interest in staying home.
Nope.
Now, the kids are different today than they were certainly when I was in school, when you were in school, and I think everything continues to evolve. But Gavin Meyer, to have legitimate offer from Wisconsin, which he did among other schools, to choose Minnesota. I just talked to him here the other day as he was sitting out looking over 120 acres of ag, talking to me about some different gobblers and different deer he's shooting. I mean, he's a man after my own heart. He just really resonated with PJ Fleck compared to Luke Fickell. And that's the thing about PJ Fleck, that it's the number one question I get asked about him. What is PJ Fleck actually like? And as someone who has had more interactions with him with the camera on or off over the last now 9 years, the way I describe PJ Fleck is he's not one Red Bull. He is 5 Red Bulls all the time. The beautiful part about that is you either, for these kids specifically, within 5 minutes of meeting him, you want to run through a brick wall for him, or you want to run as far away as possible from him, which is the beautiful part about it. You don't have to kind of waste your time in terms of, if you want to play for him or you don't. And Gavin Meyer loved the PJ Fleck energy, and compared to Luke Fickell, certainly I think that played a part.
I got to ask you, North Dakota State for the class of 26, I believe now has 5 guys out of Minnesota, 4 out of the Twin Cities area. What have you seen from what the Bison have been able to do for the class of 26 so far?
Yeah, we were talking off air here. It is very interesting for me to see Tim Polasek and his staff down at Gopher camps.
Yeah.
I've seen them. Minnesota had 2 camps here. And there was a heavy Bison presence at both of them, which 5 years ago that would have never been the case.
That wasn't happening. Nope.
But NDSU is changing with the times, and they're coming down to these Minnesota camps where it's a lot easier to see these Twin Cities kids. And I like what they've done. I think probably my 2 favorite of them are both cornerback commits for the Bison, one being from Waseca and Darren Russell. He is one of the best athletes in the state. I mean, he is an outstanding basketball player. He's someone that I think has an opportunity to be an outstanding defensive back. He's not the biggest guy in the world, which is probably holding him off from some of the Power 4 schools or regional schools here going on him. But I think he has an outstanding opportunity to be a great player for the Bison. And the same thing goes for Braden Dozier, who is the son of a Gopher great, Yuki Dozier, someone that NDSU was able to see at one of the Gopher camps, and they immediately got him committed after. I know that he was dealing with a little bit of an injury during that Gopher camp, but he still persevered through it. But you got a couple of guys that have the ideal size. Maybe the speed isn't particularly at this moment in time Power 4 worthy, but NDSU hasn't cared about that forever. They can coach that out. If I've learned anything about covering the Bison, it's that if they're an inch or two too short or a tenth or two too slow or whatever it may be, you never doubt the folks up in that strength and conditioning department up there to get the most out of whatever the kid is. So those are 2 of my favorites here from the Twins.
Yeah, I know they were really excited about that. They got another corner out of Wisconsin and Kobe Russell that they got 3 really, really good corners out of this class that they are over the moon on. Last thing before I let you go, for the House settlement that's come down, how has that affected recruiting just in terms of what the Gophers now can go out and say about revenue share? Have you discerned that of how that's affecting recruiting now, knowing that this is going to be a reality come next Tuesday?
Yeah, it's certainly, I feel like between the portal and now the portal is old news, and now we got the House settlement. Here's what I would say is I think across Big Ten football and across SEC football and just Minnesota football in general, I think the playing field is becoming as level as it has been. Now, that being said, the Ohio States still have a $20 million payroll, or the Texases. They'll always have more money than everybody else, and that's just going to be the reality. But for a school like Minnesota, who can now have $14 million in addition to their NIL to pay these players, the thing we're going to find out here in the next 6, 12, 24 months is if they can just be in the ballpark, will that help them continue to retain players? Where Coy Parrish could have gone to a lot of different institutions here this offseason and gotten more money, but I can assure you Coy Parrish is very well taken care of behind the scenes because of the House settlement, because of NIL, and because of that, he's still on the roster at the University of Minnesota. Same things go for some of their other best players. So are we going to continue to find that if Minnesota can just be in the ballpark? Again, I don't ever expect them to be the highest bidder if they were to hit the open market in this instance. But because the House settlement will now allow a school like Minnesota to pay players, have this additional $14 million, you should be able to retain your best players. And then I'm very curious to see for a school like North Dakota State, we're talking about all these additional Power 4 schools having 14 additional more millions of dollars. Now, I know that I believe it's the Green and Gold Collective in Fargo there. I know that they're doing their best, and I know every offseason it's going to be a worry, but it's going to be fascinating to see what happens at the FCS and Group of 5 level, to where if you're an all-conference player or you're a really good player, everybody's got additional money to now throw around, and it's going to be an interesting kind of thing to follow here throughout the next year or two.
It's great to see you, bud. Have a great summer, and we'll catch up again soon, okay?
All right, let's go Mets, baby.
We need a win sometime. Thanks, bud. Good to see you. There he goes.
Appreciate you.
Ryan Burns from Gopher Illustrated does an awesome job following everything Minnesota Gopher football recruiting related, and we'll find out on Pierce Petersone later today out of Triton if he's going to be a Gopher or he's heading to Penn State. We'll break. We come back. We'll wrap things up and get you ready for a busy Wednesday show. We'll do that when Hot Mike wraps right after this. All right, wrapping things up here on a busy Wednesday. Tomorrow, Grant Nelson will join us. Easton Stick will be here. Power Pack show tomorrow. Looking forward to that. Of course, a full recap of the opening round of the NBA draft and what the Wolves do coming up on the show tomorrow. Two quick things. We were just talking about Sac State. Eric brought that up. The president tweeted this out about 10 minutes ago. Dr. Luke Wood says, Sacramento State has met every meaningful benchmark for FBS membership, and we believe our university, our students, and the entire Sacramento region deserve major college football. We're full steam ahead, and we still plan to be playing FBS football in 2026. That's despite now they have been rejected to get a waiver to play FBS football by the Division I Oversight Committee. That would mean we're heading for lawsuit city, I would imagine. So stay tuned on the ever-changing saga that goes on with Sacramento State. At this point, you figured they were this far out, they were going to sue. And the president has been as vocal as anybody about wanting this to happen. And if the school president wants to happen, then they're gonna make every try to do it. So we'll find out what the next step is after the oversight committee said no thanks to a independent waiver for them to go that route in 2026. That's the latest there. All right, let's do some what to watch before we get out of here. We mentioned we got the draft starts tonight, 7 o'clock. You can see it on WDAY. First round coverage gets underway from Brooklyn with the Dallas Mavericks on the clock, with them selecting Cooper Flagg. And then after that, we'll have some fun of who goes where and what the Timberwolves will do. Maybe they trade out of the first round. Who knows? Right now, Minnesota slated to have the 17th pick in the first round. Mariners and Twins coming up 6:30 tonight on Twins.tv. They've lost 11-12. We'll see what Joe Ryan can do coming up tonight. Also, this afternoon, now, Pirates-Brewers wouldn't get on the rundown outside of the pitching matchup that's going on today. Jacob Missorowski, who's been a stud out of nowhere against Paul Skeens. That's at 1 o'clock on MLB Network. We got to go. Thanks to Ryan Burns for joining us, to Landon Koenig and Jayden Price. If you missed any of the show, you can podcast it later today at Inforum.com. You can watch a full replay on WDAY+. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll catch you back here tomorrow.